Welcome back to KickBack. I am now at Altitude Coffee Roasters. We're so glad to be here. I'm now joined by Todd. Todd, thank you so much for coming in to share your story, your personal story with us today.
Yeah, I really appreciate having me. Thank you.
Yeah, and so we wanted to talk about your journey with sobriety and just how did that, what did that look like for you in realizing that you needed to have that shift, that change in your life to become sober?
So I'm an alcoholic. I'm nearing 8 years sober now, and I wish it was as simple as to say there was just one single light bulb type moment. I really struggled for a long time knowing that I had a problem, trying 15 different ideas and different things, and not being able to manage it, and then just stuff getting progressively worse. So relationships, jobs, health, just the whole gambit just kept kind of getting worse and worse and worse. There was definitely a rock bottom type moment where it was like, okay, enough's enough. And I actually kind of asked for help, and that was the biggest change.
Right.
But it was a lot of death by a thousand cuts before I got there.
Right, and I think a lot of people don't understand or realize that it's not like a finale, like it's not final. Once you hit that point of, okay, I'm sober, it's not like a final point, right? Like it's a journey that you manage and navigate for forever.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like, I think a lot of people just, oh yeah, you're done, you're good. And,
No,
yeah.
it's far from that. The process of addiction is that you kind of rewire your brain, like, and why people who don't have addiction
Right.
sometimes struggle with understanding addicts is because they shouldn't. Right. So my whole world ended up being rooted around how I was going to get a drink. Right. So instead of it being like, oh, Ben invited me to a barbecue this weekend, that sounds like fun, I haven't seen him in a while. It's like, oh, you know, how am I going to have a few drinks? Oh, Ben invited me to a barbecue, there'll be beer there.
Right.
Right. Like, and then, so undoing that is extremely complicated because you've taken a lot of time and effort to build your life around that. And you end up in a pretty vulnerable, raw place once you start to do that. And then new stuff comes up as time goes on too. You know, Christmas is only once a year. I stopped drinking in February. That first Christmas was really hard. And that was, 10 months later.
And can you share some of those in like the early stages of recovery, some of those hardest battles that you faced?
Figuring out how to spend my time in a healthy and kind of meaningful way. Like, don't get me wrong, I had coping skills. I was really good at it. They just were really unhealthy coping skills. They were causing so many other issues downstream. Asking for help and being willing to listen to what people had to say was really hard, but huge.
Right.
Hearing what people had to say helped me understand how I was being viewed, how I was impacting other people, but also like what their experiences were. 12-step programs are a big deal for a reason, is because you're not alone. You have other people who've gone through things. My family used to go down on all-inclusive trips in the past. That turned into a really challenging thing to do. So I was able to access kind of my community of support, say like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Is this a good idea? Is it a bad idea? Has anybody else done it? What have they done? And again, like it just stuff, and I'm almost 8 years in now, and stuff still pops up sometimes where it definitely gets easier as time goes on, but it's because I've experienced a lot more things sober. It was a long time where I hadn't experienced anything sober before, and so it's just like learning to walk again, and it's tricky.
Right, and like I just love the fact that you're here, and I mean, as a human, as a man, sharing your journey and being 8 years in. What does that feel like to be 8 years sober?
I'm kind of going to go at that two ways a little bit. One thing I really want to put out, this is the first time I've done something kind of person-facing, where I've told my story, and a big part of that has been because of shame. And that is a huge thing for all people, but men in particular. I really was quite ashamed of where I was and how I kind of let myself get there. And all these really self-deprecating things. So this is a big deal, and I really appreciate the opportunity, and you've been really kind with that. So that evolution over time and being more comfortable, I also didn't want to scare it away.
Right.
It's a vulnerable thing to come out here and say, because relapse is a part of recovery.
Right.
It happens. What you do from that and with that information that you gain from a relapse is really important. I was really afraid of putting it out there that I'm in this place and I'm doing this thing, and I'm working on my sobriety, and then having relapse look like a failure,
Right.
and having to eat that and own that. I wasn't bold enough to do that for a really long time, and I wish I had been more so that way.
Right.
But it's interesting because sometimes people, you kind of mentioned it earlier, will say, oh well, you're a recovered alcoholic. No.
Right.
That's not the case. This is going to be something I deal with for the rest of my life, and but it's not a life sentence. It's not weighing me down like it used to. It's actually one of the only real illnesses that and diseases that, like, when you work on it, like the solution for it actually makes you a better person. Mm-hmm. Being more present and more vulnerable and having a better sense of yourself. Right. You can end up on the other end of it. Chemotherapy and things like that for cancer can leave you with a lot of challenges after the fact. And that's the one kind of weird, lucky thing with addiction is, like, by working on it, I'm a better person. And that actually is great.
Why is it so important for somebody to admit that is struggling with addiction, to admit that they need help?
One of the biggest pieces, and in a 12-step program, admitting that you don't have control over this is a real core integral part. It also gives you permission to get help, because it's bigger than you are. You cannot beat it, you no matter what you try. And there's more models than 12-step programs as well, even harm reduction centers and programs and things like that. Like, there are so many different ways of asking for help. There's so many different options for asking for help. There is therapy, group settings, medications that can be applied. In town, we have some addiction specialists that they prescribe medications to support people in addiction. But you have to ask. You have to start. Like, I don't know anybody who's been successful by isolating themselves and just trying to figure it out on their own. Right. So building that community and being open to admit. It took me about a year and a half to call myself an alcoholic. Right. And that was a really hard thing to do and say out loud. But it took a lot of the power away from the unsaid stuff by kind of putting it out there.
Right, and giving yourself permission.
That's a huge part.
Right.
Permission and opening yourself up to be vulnerable and knowing that it's tricky, so that you can have that good come from it is really hard. And that's part of that addictive thinking, is to keep you in a place where that substance is what you need.
Right, and I just find it interesting, and that idea of being open and sharing, and like you have that shame that holds you back from doing so, but you have this huge group of people that are there kind of waiting for you to be like, no, we're actively going through this, and we want to be able to help you. And they're there because they don't want other people, because it helps them, but they don't want other people to continue to struggle because they know what that feels like.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, that they want to help. Doing that work in those groups helps those people too. Like, it's a back and forth relationship. Right. They benefit by it, but then so do I, and right. It's great. You gotta be there to have the benefit of it.
Right, and so if somebody is at home right now watching this, wherever they're watching from, and maybe they're struggling with addiction themselves, what would you say to them? And this is going to be a two-part piece, but what would you say to somebody that is personally struggling with addiction?
You're not alone. You're not less than in any way, shape, or form. If you're struggling, you should be struggling. Right. That struggling's the right word, but there is help. There's tons of different avenues for help, but you have to ask. Right. Ask for help. Mm-hmm. You got a lot of work to do. and you're going to have to do it. But there's a ton of people that are willing to at least try and start you in the right direction. Start asking. And if you don't get what you need in the first place, ask again.
Right.
There's lots of people out there.
Welcome back to KickBack. My name is Ben, and we are presented by CMHA, Brant Haldeman, Norfolk. I'm now joined by John Pooley. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We've been trying to connect for since last KickBack.
Yeah, so for about a year now.
Right, and I think a lot has happened, but I'm really excited to have you here at Hudson Public to hear about your story. Let's just go back to the beginning. You shared that you had a heavy season in life.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about what that heavy season was before you found your internet fame?
Yeah, it was, you go through, like I grew up in an era where it was kind of like you just tough it out, right? And it's just like you got to figure it out, and there was no such thing as mental health or any of these things. So I was just coasting through life thinking I had it under control and I had all these things handled, right? Wife, 3, beautiful boys, a career, a good career, friends, all these other things in my life. And I was like, I'm doing a pretty good job. And then one day I just had this thought that I've never had before. And it was a pretty, to be like fully candid, the psychotherapist I saw said it was a suicidal ideation. So it's not like full of thoughts of suicide. It was something where I wasn't thinking like of what I would do. It was just like to a point, but that was enough to scare me. And I kept that inside for a little bit. And then just one day I opened up to my wife because I thought it was a sign of weakness, right? And especially to my wife, like I'm supposed to be the man, the supporter, all these things that I thought was the norm. And it was just, I had some wine and I felt like I was gonna just blurt out what I blurted out, what I told her, and just that I've been having thoughts of no longer being alive. And then from that it transpired into what it is today, pretty much from that one conversation. Right.
And what was it like was it a relief to have shared that with your wife at that time?
No, I was embarrassed. And then I remember waking up the next day, I'm like, she's gonna leave me. Like, I'm not, and like everything, again, since I was young, to that point was just like, you have to be a man. You have to be, and I always struggled with my masculinity because I sang a lot, right? And wore tight pants and like all these things. And I thought that wasn't masculine for whatever reason. And, so I always struggle with that and like trying to like be overly masculine. And when I did that, when I told her that, I remember I just went to bed and then I woke up the next day. I'm like, she's gonna think I'm weak. I'm not this man. I'm not this provider, this supporter. My kids are gonna think I'm weak. It was just like this weird place I went into. And then my wife very quickly showed me that it was actually quite the opposite. At that point, she was like my strength when I felt weak and completely gave me a 180 on what I thought it was to be a man and a human being in general.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too, like exactly how you worded that. That's supposed to be what like partnership is, right? Is when we are down, our partner is hopefully up and able to lift us up and back. But for whatever reason, as men, stereotypically, we often feel the need to wear the brunt or like carry the weight of the majority of that, and it's just so strange that like why would we expect anything else, like other than like a supportive partner to be there, right?
And I think it's always been like that through like, when I watch movies or I read books, like all these other things, it's just always been, the man is this, the man is that, the man is this. There has to be that, right? And like getting that just always in my brain, just having that open, like it's so simple. It's just talking, and then you realize that it's really not. In most, I can't talk about everyone's situation, but in most situations, that's not the case. And even with a lot of people that I've talked about my work, because once I went up to my wife, then it was just the floodgates. I was talking to everybody about it, and you realize just how many people are feeling the same, but they don't talk about it, right? Because they think that they're going to be looked at as weak or whatever, and it's like I don't know the other side of it, like from the female perspective. I just know, like, again, from the male perspective. And it's just like the stigma of weakness, right? And it was just strange, the eye-opening conversations I was having with people of who I thought had their lives together, and people who I thought were just the happiest, and they were like, I've had some dark days too. Like it was very it's very strange in a very in a good and positive way.
Right, and so how empowering was that for you on your journey to be able to start to speak and share openly with like anybody that would listen, it sounds like?
Well, what I did was I my wife convinced me to go to therapy, and I went to Brant Mental Health Solutions. And Patricia, she was a psychotherapist. She was amazing. I was initially just going to say I just need 2 weeks to refresh, and she's like, no, you need a lot longer. So it ended up being 6 months that I was off work. But I remember I went back to work, my day job, and if you're sick or if you're hurt, and you're very open to say like, oh, like why are you off sick? Oh, I broke my leg, or I broke my arm, or I had the flu, right? But when it's something like mental, you're just like, oh, you don't really talk about it. So I was like, you know what? I took some time off because like I just lost myself for a bit, right? And I just, I wasn't feeling good in my head, right? And then the response that I got from that was like, me too, man, right? And then the other one was, oh yeah, me too. And then I was like, wait a second, if these two people that I talked to, right, for whatever reason I told them are having these responses, like maybe more people have it. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to put it up on Facebook. And I didn't want it to be more like, looking for sympathy. I just said, this is my journey. You guys see me singing and dancing on my socials, right? But this is what I'm really dealing with behind the scenes. Just want to let you know. I tried to I put it so nobody could comment because I didn't want like, oh, you know what I mean, like the sympathy and stuff. But I put it up there, and that just went off. And I got so many DMs, messages from people, like I said, that I thought had it all together. People that I looked up to, and I used to sit there and be like, am I not normal because these people are so happy? Why am I not happy? And it turned out that they were dealing with their own stuff, and they all opened up to me. And then it just even my friend group, like my boys that we grew up with, like through all that stuff, through that toxic masculinity era, was they were upset that I didn't reach out to them. All right, and then now our group is like, we have our our gag where we talk about sports and all these other things. But then if somebody's not feeling well, they'll pop something in there and say, hey guys, like I'm having a rough week, and then we all just kind of do what we got to do, or like we'll have like a beer online, like because we're all like separated, we'll have like a virtual beer, and so that opened up like that space as well too, right? So it was just very eye opening. It was a relief, and it was just like I said, it was just a very strange, positively strange, and like overwhelming almost experience.
And can you share about the videos that you create and post it online, and how did that start? So were you creating them before you had,
I would just sing, like I would just sing randomly, because I've always sang, my whole family's involved in music. But this, one of the key things that Patricia said, and it's so simple, and that's what happens. She said when you're foggy, right, and you need somebody to help clear that fog, was that you just got to do what you're passionate about. And I love sports, right? I love my family, I love my wife, and I love singing. And I pursued music when I was younger, but then she was my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, and she got pregnant, and then I was like, I gotta get a real job, right? And I gotta do whatever I can to provide for them. So that took kind of like a back seat. And when I came back, I made a song when I was doing the dishes, and it was just a funny one. And then when I came back, I remember what she said, and I was like, I'm just going to record it. And it was about like bus driving, right? It was just something funny. It was an Usher remix. And I was like, I'll just record it just for fun. And I put it up, and then immediately it went viral. Like within an hour, it got 10,000 views. But then some of the responses were negative, right? And just because I guess I've never seen a singing bus driver, so I got scared. I didn't want to lose my job over singing a song. So I took it down, and then I just had some conversation. I put it back up, and then from there, I enjoyed that like dopamine rush of everyone's like, oh, this is so cool, this is so fun, and all that. And then I was like, let's do some more. And then I did a bunch more. Then I did a Usher cover. Then that one did well. And then I did a Drake one, and then the Drake one was what happened with him. And then I did another one. Then from there, it just kind of took off.
And for those that don't know, what was it that happened with Drake?
I sang a cover of his song. Just because my wife, like, we're Drake like fans in my household. My wife is like a huge Drake fan, and the day before I did it, she's like, if I ever meet Drake, can I shoot my shot? And I was like, sure. Sorry, shoot your shot. We're never gonna meet him, right?
Welcome back to KickBack. My name is Ben Strasser, and we are proudly presented by CMHA Brant Haldeman Norfolk. And I'm now joined by Lucas. Lucas, thank you so much for joining us here at Up Yoga and Wellness.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you reaching out and saying, you know what, I've got something that I'd like to share and speak about, and something that I want to add to the conversation. And it's your journey with therapy.
Yeah,
and
of course.
Now it's come. You wanted to specifically talk about the different points that it's kind of come into play in your life. Can you share about the different seasons that you've experienced?
Yeah, of course. So I did therapy young. Both me and my brother did, maybe when we're, I think, 10 and 12, somewhere in and around there. Both of us had been, going through a lot of bullying in school. We had a lot of sort of anger management issues that we were dealing with. So we ended up going to see therapists there, which then eventually also then transitioned into my parents got divorced, and we went to therapy for that. So that was, that was very much, we went through sort of the, that was guided by the education system. They encouraged us to go. I learned lots from that, in terms of being able to handle what people say and sort of handle sort of the anger that I had at the time, and really sort of learn to deal with that in an appropriate fashion. So that was sort of my first touch point with therapy, and then I figured, well, I've done therapy, so I'm good. Never need to go again. I'm perfect now. So I'm great.
Right.
And I did that for a long while, and then I was elected.
Right.
And I realized over the course of the pandemic, our generation has dealt with quite a lot of interesting sort of overarching changing dynamics through things like that. And I realized, I think, and in talking to sort of some of my mentors as well, maybe there's it's probably appropriate for me to go and check in, go seek out therapy again, just because, I think there's certainly, I grew up with this stigma of dealing, mental, therapies for when you're having like a crisis moment. Like when I was younger, when I was having, both me and my brother were having sort of anger management issues. But I realized, I'm moving into a new role. It's a stressful role. I'm an introvert by nature. I'm not recharged by social interaction. It's very much drained by it. And I've gotten myself in this situation now where I am in the public all the time, talking to people all the time, new people, very much out of my comfort zone. So maybe I should go check in, go see if I can find a therapist, talk to them about this, work through some of my social anxiety issues that I had at the time, so I could better, fulfill my role. And then it's kind of evolved from there too, where, I think, I wouldn't feel any shame going to a doctor, to go talk to my doctor about something, and now I view very much therapy in the same way as, I'm having difficulties with this, that, the other thing, and I can go talk to my therapist about it, and it's a great sort of mental check-in.
Right.
So yeah, that's sort of the two different moments that I've engaged with therapy.
Well, and I think that it probably served you really well having that introduction with therapy early on to understand what to expect.
Exactly. It was a very positive experience where, I think especially in media and things, it's portrayed very negatively, at least, in my mind, of sort of the zeitgeist of how that's presented. But for me, when I went as a kid, it was very positive, through some very stressful times in my life, my parents' divorce, things like that. So when I was considering it again, I didn't have this sort of preconceived notion of, it's going to be scary or whatever. It was very much a comfort zone when I was a kid, and it's been that since.
Right. Well, and I think that you having the platform that you do now as an elected official in the county of Brant, like you being open and vulnerable and sharing your experience, I think that is an awesome step to have that be public facing.
Well, exactly right. I had seen a couple things that you've done through KickBack before, and a couple that particularly spoke to me, and sort of life experiences that I've had, placing a lot of self-worth and value solely on your job titles and the things that you're doing. And it made me realize that, it's, one thing to believe that we should be more public and open about these things, and another thing to practice what you preach. So I really want to take it upon myself to reach out and look to do this, because I think it is important that I do practice what I preach here and be open and honest about this, because everyone, in my mind, if it's an option, everyone should utilize these services in the same way that you would a doctor.
Right.
Because even if you're doing well, there's still things that I think you can gain from talking to sort of a neutral third-party voice with experience and training to be able to help you with things.
What has maybe surprised you the most in your journey with therapy, recently, with yourself being in the public eye? What has surprised you most about maybe the tools that you required to learn to be able to navigate?
Yeah, so I initially thought like, and the sort of the catalyst for me was going and okay, I have a lot of social anxiety over specifically going into like these big mixer types of events because it's like sort of my worst case scenario where it's new people, I'm having to like introduce myself into a conversation, put myself there. For some reason, door knocking is very different. You knock on the door and then I guess I zone out and forget, and a conversation's happening to me now?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But that's sort of the reason I went there. But then it's evolved from there of like, it's just great to be able to sort of, when I'm feeling things, especially when you're in the public eye, there's lots of public commentary, things like that, and being able to bounce it off of someone, sort of say, this is how I'm feeling, is there a better way I can handle this? Am I right to be feeling this way? Things like that. It's just a great venue to have and not needlessly burdening, just coming home and dumping all that on my wife or something like that.
Yeah.
It's great to have, that's their job to do.
Right.
So it's great to have sort of that opportunity.
Right, and I think that as a man, it's very important to share that. And I recently, 2 months ago, month and a half ago, I set up an appointment with a therapist, and I chatted with her and just was able to say, here's all the things, here's all the cards, right? This is everything. And just be able to do it without having, there's no preconceived notions about anything, right? And just be able to say, here's everything. And now I haven't been back, but having that line in the sand of here's myself.